Hello and welcome to the Save the Punter Betting Show, the programme where we do the research for you so you don't have to. Every week we preview the biggest English football games and advise you of where we think there's value to be had to make your sports betting life a little easier. Welcome back, listeners. You're in for an absolute treat today. We've got a bumper podcast of the usual Premier League football, plus we'll be joined a little bit later by Grant, Chip and Mav and Tom Mayrick to talk about the Cheltenham Festival. I think some of you on Twitter that follow us will know we've got a little group going on Telegram where we're going to be sending voice notes and write-ups for our selections every race. We've done that since 2016 and turned over a cracking ROI. We're at over 100 points profit from 400 point stake, so a 25% return there. So a big sample size as well. But we'll get cracking on with the football first. So, Pete, welcome back. How has your betting gone since we last spoke 2 weeks ago?
Probably medium. A few ups, a few downs. Nothing of note that I can remember. Pretty standard.
I thought you had a big play on, not a big play, but you had a big odd selection on Sheffield United to beat Liverpool, which, on reflection, do you think you've been let down a bit by the Blades?
I think they gave it a half decent shot. I mean, it's to be expected that they're going to lose games, although they just seem to be the only team that Liverpool have beaten recently, which is a shame.
Yeah, it was an 8-1 selection. It was never going to be a banker. But if we rewind to the last podcast, which was game week 25, you advised West Ham draw no bet against Spurs, which was a nice winner for you. But Villa draw no bet and over 2.5 in the Leeds Wolves game somehow didn't come in.
Yeah, I think I backed Leeds twice. I needed Leeds goals in the last 3 games, and they scored 0 goals on about 4 expected goals. And the one game that I didn't back them, they scored 3 goals on about 1 expected goal. So it's just one of those runs with Leeds.
Speaking of conversion of chances and expected goals, I know our next panellist, Ash, is going to be coming up with some first goal scorer each ways. And on that point, Ash, let us revel in the glory of Richarlison first goal scorer, which you tipped up.
It was a nice day, but that was 2 weeks ago, so we've got to move on now, haven't we? That's been spent a few times over.
In pubs that are still open in Dubai?
Pubs and rent.
Well, when you live a hotel lifestyle like yourself, your outgoings are always going to be a lot before any betting comes in. But 12-1, we got on Richarlison. Really glad that the listeners got in on that. I also had a nice week with both teams to score landing in United Newcastle and both teams to score an overs landing. They're both separate bets. Just a shame we couldn't get the Newcastle win for the hat-trick. And then last week, we didn't do a podcast, but I did put a couple on the sheet. Southampton to beat Sheffield United, which came in, and unders in City v United. So we're sitting on a lovely profit, actually, fellas. So between the three of us, we're almost at the $3,000 mark in the Premier League this season. We're sitting at an ROI of 34.06% between the three of us. That's from 174 point stake, so a large sample size. And to get that sort of return in Premier League betting, when we're sticking to 1x2, Asian, goals and goal scorers, it's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And Pete, can you get us kicked off with a winner this week? I understand your strongest bet of the week comes at Old Trafford.
Yep, I'm going for maybe a bit of an outsider here. I'm going for West Ham, draw no bet at, I think you can get around 3.2, 3.25 generally available. I mean, I've been saying it in a lot of podcasts. I think West Ham are a good team, and people are sort of catching up to it now. But I still think the odds a bit too big for this game. Just Man U, still an enigma for me. I think people will talk about how they played well last week at Man City, but that's the sort of game where they tend to play well when teams come at them and they can sort of soak up the pressure and try and hit them on the counter. Add in that you get a penalty in the first minute and go 1-0 up, and that's the perfect recipe for a good Man U performance. West Ham won't be doing that. they'll be sitting back, looking to hit them on the counter. West Ham, such a solid side. Man, you're going to need to come up with the goods to break them down. I think Pogba's still going to be out. Rashford looks like he's going to be out. Cavani might not be playing. Add in Man U are playing today in the Europa League, which isn't going to do them any favours. And I think it's a big price on West Ham. I look at their season stats, look at sort of the expected goal ratios, even the goal ratios, the shots ratios, all very similar, West Ham to Man U. And even in the last 10 games, West Ham are not showing any signs of slowing down. I think it's just Lingard who's out and Ogbonna, but they've been able to cope without them. And I think it's the perfect time for West Ham to make a statement that they're really in this top 4 race. And I think it's a good bet.
Yeah, I think there is value on West Ham in this game. I had the West Ham outright win as the best value, actually. You can get a standout 4-1 price with Betfred, and I'd certainly recommend putting some money on that. I think the draw is in play, so I'm willing to say maybe we go for the draw no bet. What's your point stake on that?
Well, personally, yeah, I'm going for the draw no bet. I'm going to go just for the bigger stake. I've gone for 2.5 points. But yeah, I don't really have a strong favour over the draw no bet or the outright win. So
I think if Cavani's missing, that certainly is a miss for United, because he seems to have scored goals from not proper chances in quite a few games that have been important. He's certainly the most prolific of their forward players. And I think I spoke a few weeks ago on the podcast about Fernandes looking knackered, and I don't think his form's going to continue. And Ash, you also spoke about Fernandes perhaps reverting to the mean. If you were to put money on this game, is there a bet for you, or is it one you're avoiding?
I won't be betting on the game. I think West Ham are a slight bit of value, not enough for me. Looking at Bruno Fernandes, he's actually favourite to score the first goal. So he's 4.5 for the first goal. And he's such a fraud. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like every week, he just does my head in. But yeah, when he's 4.5 first goal scorer, you know something's going wrong somewhere in it, and it can't last. I did look at Antonio, but at 7.5, I'd definitely just sit on my hands and do something else than have a bet in this game, to be honest. But I would support West Ham. If I was forced to have a bet, it would be West Ham. Probably just West Ham to win.
The one thing that worries me about West Ham is they don't exactly have loads of shots in the box. I think they're about 7th in the league for shots in the box, and they're 4th in the league table. But then again, Man United, I think, have only had another 15 shots in the box more than West Ham this season, so they're only getting an extra half off per game, so the difference isn't that big. Moyes is obviously going to be incredibly motivated he always will be every time he goes back to Old Trafford, because he feels hard done by there. Not necessarily saying that's going to transfer into anything the players do, but to Pete's point, he's certainly got West Ham ticking. To be winning more than half your games at this stage of a Premier League season is fantastic. West Ham are on for their best ever Premier League finish. They're a win away from the Champions League places, and actually they've got a game in hand over Chelsea. So if they win this game in hand, their points per game, they'll be 4th in the league, which is, I don't think any West Ham fan thought when they brought Moyes back. Ash, if you had to say your strongest bet on the card, where would you go to?
I would go to Chelsea versus Leeds, or Leeds versus Chelsea, however you want to pronounce it, and Timo Werner first goal each way. Obviously, check the team news first, but he's 5.5 to score the first goal. And I brought this up when they played Newcastle the other week. He was 6.0 first goal that day, and he should have been about 11-4, so 3.75. Scored the second goal, so the place money came in. But Leeds have conceded 47 goals this season, I think it is, 47.7 expected goals. From a defensive point of view, they are a bad side. We know Chelsea are good. Chelsea are probably the second best team in the league. They have shots. They've had the 3rd most amount of shots in the league. They've had the 3rd most amount of shots on target in the league. This Thomas Tuchel guy's got them playing some lovely stuff, actually. So I don't think they'll go to Ellen Road, have no issues, have no fear. And if Timo Werner starts through the middle, like it looks like he should be doing, then him at 5.5 to score the first goal is ridiculous. I mean, it should be 3.25. His XG for the season's 11, and that's non-penalty XG. He scored 5, so he's 6 goals short of where he should be, and he's not that bad of a striker. I think he'll score on Wednesday game Saturday. That's a cracking bet. I don't think you'll find a better bet on the card this weekend, personally.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't go as far as to say it's the best bet on the card, but I'd certainly support it. I think there's only 13 players in the league that should have scored more goals than him this season based on the chances they've had. And there aren't really surprises in there. It's the big names like Vardy, Salah and Kane, those that have scored quite a few this season like Bamford, Calvert-Lewin and Watkins. The only kind of massive underperformer in there is probably Neil Maupay, who's about 7th on that list. But maybe we'll talk about that later. But yeah, Werner has only scored 5 and XG has him for more than double that. I think he's not looked like the player he was in Germany this season, but he hasn't been played down the middle consistently. And you've seen in recent games, some of Chelsea's wide players or other forwards are doing everything they can to get him a goal, but it's just not fallen for him. So maybe it is time for that to change. As a Chelsea fan, Pete, can you see Werner sticking one in at the weekend? Or more importantly, is he value for first goal scorer at the odds?
Well, I'd think that Leeds are the sort of team where you might expect him to play well because there'll be a bit more space in behind. Leeds against Chelsea, a lot of teams have been a bit cagey sitting deep because they know about Werner. He has been making good runs in behind, even if he hasn't scored. And Leeds just play the way Leeds play. Doesn't matter who it's against, do they? So this is the sort of game where you think you might get a bit more space. So this checks out to me, yeah.
Any other first goal scorers this weekend, Ash?
Yeah, so going to Palace, West Brom, 2 teams I massively hate. One, because West Brom keep getting these lucky little results and I need them to finish bottom. And Palace, because I just can't stand watching them at the moment, to be honest. West Brom have this guy. They've got him on loan from Galatasaray. Now, his name's, I'm going to make an arse of myself pronouncing this, Mbaye Diangani. I hope I got that right to all the Senegalese listeners out there. But his XG should be 4.26. He's only played 8 games and he scored 1 goal. So he's due some goals. Back to the sort of point I made about Leeds is Palace concede lots of shots. Shots from all over the place, shots in the box. Their XG's awful. And I can see West Brom coming down the cellar, Big Sam setting up. And West Brom actually probably getting a result. But going back to this guy who plays up front, he started his career in Italy, scored 27 goals in 30 games for his first team, went to a team called Bra, scored 23 goals in 29 games. Then he's been on loan and around the continent. In Turkey, he scored 32 goals in 34 games for a team I've never heard of, and 19 goals in 30 games for Galatasaray. Went to Belgium, scored 4 goals in 6 games. I mean, this guy just scores goals, and he's 8.0. I don't know why this guy's 7-1 to score the first goal against a team that basically can't defend. Palace be half on the beach at the moment as well with the way results have gone. So give me this Mbaye Diangana guy, 7.0 first goal scorer. It's an absolute standout as well. In fact, double it with Timo Werner each way, and you'll get a nice run for your 40-1 double.
I'm not sure on your pronunciation, but I do like the bet. I don't see any N before the G. I'd go for Diagne, but again, I don't know. What I do know is that he's a journeyman, and at 30 years old, he probably has gone quite under the radar. Club Bruges, we've seen them play in Europe recently. Yeah, like you say, he scored 4 in 6 on loan for them, banged them in for Galatasaray, banged them in for Kasim Pasha, also in Turkey. And yeah, just doesn't seem to have kind of stayed at a club in the first team for very long. He, again, is someone that's massively underperforming against expected goals. He's only started 7 7 games, and expected goals have got him at almost 5. He's having a fair few shots as well. I think he's had 16 shots in the box already. He's kind of the main outlet for West Brom. I like the bet. I really like the bet, actually. So I think that's worth half a point each way for sure. The other bet I like in this game is a draw. I just think it's a bit overpriced. I think Crystal Palace are happy just eking out a point whenever they can. Roy Hodgson will look at a point here as closer to being mathematically certain that West Brom can't overtake them. I think you saw that in recent games Crystal Palace have had. Was it Fulham that they drew 0-0 with, or am I remembering that wrong?
Fulham, that was horrendous, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think XG 0.14 at home to Fulham. That's embarrassing. It should be a sackable offence. That was poor, and it's not going to be any better here.
Yeah, I've got the draw as under 2-1 in my prices, but you can get 3.3. So I've had a point on the draw in that game. I fancy it to be low scoring. I can see a 0-0 or a 1-1. But hey, who knows? Maybe something will happen on Saturday that completely blows it out the water, and it'll be end to end. Speaking of end to end, any goals bets this week, Pete, or other bets on the card?
Not really any goals bets. I think a lot of the games seem to be under 2.5, but I haven't really found any value in that market. But I'm going to look to have a little bet on Burnley to beat Everton. I think you can get around 4.3 to 4.8 around the market. I'm still not convinced of Everton. Like all season, I haven't been, and they're not really getting any better. I've got their last 10 games, 35% shot ratio, 42% expected goal ratio. They're sort of living on their attacking players like Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, which is fine, but I'm willing to take that on with Burnley, who have come up with some results recently, picking up a few draws against good teams, but I think they can get a win. And at that price, I'll take Burnley to beat Everton. Everton, a couple of injuries. I think Mina's still out, Coleman, Rodriguez still out. So I'm not convinced with Sigurdsson still. I think the midfield is a bit dodgy. Doucouré's out as well. I think that's a big miss. So I like Burnley.
Yeah, I think the draw's in play as well, but I do like Burnley. I've got Burnley being the biggest value in this game, closely followed by the draw, and Everton being really bad value. So I've gone for Burnley plus a half, which is 2.04 with Bet365 to get odds against on Burnley plus half a goal. So basically, Burnley to win or draw, I think it's a great bet. Everton are riding high in the league with 46 points, so 16 points above Burnley. But like you say, results have picked up a little after a really poor start. And I think this is the sort of game that Burnley enjoy. There isn't really a lot in Everton's attacking play to say, okay, they're a really prolific team that are going to make the most out of scraps of chances. I think me and Tarkowski will fancy their chances, nullifying Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison there. Ash, do you have an opinion on this game? And if you had to, would you go Burnley win or Burnley plus a half?
I would go Burnley plus a half, and it's one that I'm on the precipice of backing. I'm hoping Everton shorten up a bit so we can get a slightly bigger price on Burnley. What I do kind of think I might end up doing here is I like Burnley this weekend, and I don't particularly like Brighton. I might have a little bit of Brighton to get relegated to cover off some of this Newcastle position that we've all got. Then again, I might just have more on Newcastle to go down. So something like that. I mean, this Newcastle to go down position has become quite large, and I think this weekend might be the potential to try and mix it up and take some of it back instead of just backing Burnley in the one-off game. Let's kind of see what we can do and get Brighton down or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Brighton keep playing good football, but at the end of the day, they just don't have the players to convert the chances that they create. And I can't see that being something that changes. Pete, you look like you disagree on that.
Well, I'm still not convinced that it's just the players can't score. You look, it's been going both ways as well. People just been scoring worldies against Brighton, so I'm not convinced of that. But I still think they'll stay
from
up.
a betting point of view, surely we all want Brighton to stay up, so we can absolutely smash into them to finish like top half in the handicap market, top 6 next season, because they're not really worse than West Ham. They're just missing. I mean, like Pete says, world-class goals been going in against them. You know, Palace scored 2 from 2 touches. And yeah, if they had a better striker, if they had an Antonio, I mean, they Brighton be on the verge of the Champions League. It's ridiculous how much bad luck they've had at both ends of the pitch. So I kind of, as much as I hate them, from my own pocket, I really do hope they stay up, because there's going to be an opportunity there next season, you'd think.
Yeah, but and that's another point as well. You can say, the strikers aren't as good. They're always going to be under their XG, maybe, but they're never going to be as under as they are this time. This is just an outlier, whether they're bad or good. So even if you think they're not good enough to meet XG, it's still way below you could ever expect for just Premier League players. So yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be right for me to back Brighton to go down after what we've been talking about on this podcast. I still think they'll be fine, but yeah, it's a bit dodgy.
I wanted to oppose them this week by backing Southampton, because I think at 3.3, Southampton are a backable price. Against Man City, Southampton showed they can score goals against anyone, even when Ings is injured. Now, their injury list is long, and it could be the week that Brighton, everything kind of kicks into gear for Brighton. So I'm a bit on the fence about that at the moment, but just so the listeners know, and you might see me tweet about this closer to the weekend, I'm getting very close to putting the trigger on Southampton to win this game. Before we move on to Cheltenham, Ash, I know you wanted to talk about Wolves v Liverpool.
Yeah, you know what? Liverpool have had their issues. We've all seen it. They're not even particularly playing well. So Wolves plus 3/4 of a goal. It's got its appeal to me. Yeah, Liverpool could click, but there's something not right there. And yeah, I thought, if Liverpool, I kind of had it near a half a goal. So at the prices, I think, we'll have a bit of Wolves plus 0.75. And if Liverpool do click, like they did away at Palace, fantastic. You've done your money, but at least you've been entertained. Likelihood is this game probably ends up 0-0 or 1-0 either way. And you move on to the next day and see where we end up.
I can't bring myself to ever back Wolves without Jimenez in the team. I just don't think they're a bit similar to Cavani, scoring goals from positions he shouldn't have. And Jimenez really is the focal point. I think he makes players like Traore, Podence and Neto look better because he turns kind of average crosses into assists. So I couldn't really... I was on the verge of almost thinking Liverpool were an okay price at 1.8, because they wouldn't be 1.8 against Wolves last season. But then, okay, of course, they're missing a couple of centre halves. Phillips looked good the other day, but I don't know if that will give him a bit of confidence to play a bit better. Fabinho is obviously better at centre half than Henderson is. Curtis Jones is really kind of working his way into that centre midfield role and arguably does deserve to start. Salah's looking a bit more up to his old tricks in terms of converting chances. So I would personally steer against that. To decide whether it's an official podcast bet, Pete, I think you should have the deciding vote here.
Well, before everything, I wanted to back, before looking at any prices, I sort of wanted to be back in Liverpool because I feel like hate has maybe gone a bit too far. But then when I priced up, I agree with everything that Ash said. I've got it about half a goal, but I haven't backed any bet. I'd rather not make any bets. But if I was going strictly on what it says, I do have it at half a goal. If you can get 3/4, then technically there's a bit of value there. I'm not going to be strongly recommending it, but that's my position.
It's not one to have the family silver on. I mean, I've often spoke about, gambling irresponsibly and hitting things when you think you're massively wrong. This isn't one of them. This is your probably smallest bet of the weekend. If you must have a bet for me. It is probably going to be my smallest Premier League bet of the weekend. I'll be having a lot more money on Werner and Diagne, or Diani, whatever you want to call him, scoring goals.
Okay. So let's put half a point each way on your first goal scorer bets. We'll put 2 points on West Ham, draw no bet. We'll do a point on Burnley plus a half. And we might leave the Wolves bet. I think probably do a point on draw in Palace v West Brom as well. So we've got a few bets there. We've got 5 bets, and maybe later in the week we'll tweet on whether we pull the trigger on Southampton or pull the trigger on Wolves plus 3/4 of a goal. So let's move on to horse racing. And we've been delighted that, by the way, this Cheltenham package we're running, we don't want money for it. We're going to be doing it anyway, but we like getting pissed. So if people want to send us beers, you can do that on PayPal. We'll happily drink beers in reward for our work. So we're joined by Chip and Mav to talk us through some of the big racing coming up this week at Cheltenham. The festival starts next Tuesday, and the first race is the Sky Bet Supreme Novices Hurdle. Chip, I know you certainly had an opinion in that race.
Yeah, I do. So I'm certainly not going to be steaming into the favourite at this point in time. I think you'll be getting a better price on the day, possibly on Appreciate. There's going to be some great offers about with some of the bookmakers. But I wanted a position in the race with a lot of the bookies going non-runner, no bet. I wanted a position in the race, and a position that I thought we're going to be a good position before we get to the day. So I picked out For Pleasure, and the reason that I picked out For Pleasure is that Bet365 are going 66-1 with him, and he just has that sort of profile to me. I mean, he's not a Mullins or a Henderson horse, we know that much, because you're not going to be seeing 66-1 on one of them boys. But you look at Cinders and Ashes, you look at Somerville Boy and Kalashnikov, he just reminds me of one of them horses. He went and won the Grade 2 at Warwick, and he won it in style from the front. And I'm always looking for a horse that'll lead on the first day. I think you'll struggle to. There's only LeBake really that's ever come from behind in a Supreme. So I just thought we're way overpriced on the each way market. I think we'll be seeing it going off about 25-1, 20-1 each way. I know it's dangerous putting a price on it, but no, I think we're in a good position really with that one. It's no way it's running in the champion hurdle.
So Willie Mullins and Nicky Henderson, obviously, they've been the trainers that you think of when you talk about winners of this race in previous years. I think something like 6 of the last 9 have been trained by them. Mav, would you agree with Chip, and you're kind of looking outside there, or do you have a different opinion?
I mean, for me, it's a race that doesn't hold too much depth. I think the ones at the top of the market are rightfully there, and if something does spring a surprise, it's probably Outrun, and will we see it do that again? I think it's unlikely. I mean, like Chip touched on, you get horses like LeBake, but I think you're talking about real enigmas to go and win it at that price. I think for me, the favourite is definitely the right favourite, and I agree with the sentiment that on the day it'll probably be bigger than it is at the moment. Who would I take it on with? There's another Irish horse called Bob Ollinger who's 5-1 at the moment, but I think he'll go to the Ballymore. The only other horse that I think I'd probably go with is a horse called Soaring Glory at 7-1, but I can't see the favourite being beaten. Being completely honest, the form stacks up. I mean, he should have won the champion bumper last year, and if he had done, he'd have been probably even half the price he is now. So I think Mullins gets it right 9 times out of 10, and I think this is one of those.
Well, speaking of Mullins, if you look at the previous winners of the second race, which is the Arkle, I think Willie Mullins has been the trainer maybe 4 out of the last 6 or 7 as well.
Yeah.
Would you be siding with the Willie Mullins horse in that race as well, Mav?
Tough one. It's one of those races again. It's between the top two. All the others you can pick apart the form. A lot of the Irish horses have also come behind. I'm going to make a mess of the name. I think it's Energumen. A lot of them have come behind him in previous races. Good horse. Is he quite Shishkin? I don't know. Shishkin for me, I mean, I went through a lot of the numbers the other day. First race was just schooling, but the second 2 and 3 that he ran were pretty electric. His race at Kempton last time out was quicker than the race that Altior was in. Now, Altior's not the horse he used to be, but to have a novice over course and distance on the same day, on the same ground, running 2 seconds quicker against realistically a field that probably shouldn't be, it's not going to be like fast pace at the front. He's going to be doing it at his own pace. If those are the numbers that he's churning out, do we have another Sprinter Sacra? Do we have another Altior? I think there's a chance we do. And I think Shishkin, it's boring, but I think in the first 2 races, I think the favourite flies in.
So, Chip, you've been banging on to me that in this race, it's normally, you want to look for the officially the highest rate hurdler, won or placed at Cheltenham Festival before. You mentioned preferably a novices hurdle, again, trained by Henderson or Mullins, and runners that have run in the Irish Arkle or racing post novice chase have done well. Who's ticking your boxes here?
I'm not with Shishkin. I'm going to go with the Mullins horse, Energumen. I just think that we're going to get Tony bloomed. I really do. You look at the way that he's thinking. I try and think the way that the other people are thinking, the owners are thinking. They must be taking Shishkin on for a reason. And like you say, he's already beaten some of the Irish contenders in this field. And at the prices, I'm not backing Shishkin at odds on. I'm not doing it. And I'm going with the Mullins horse and Tony Bloom to take the festival by storm.
I do think it's a case of that race is the Mullins horse is by far the best of the Irish. It's whether Shishkin beats him or he beats Shishkin. I think, quite honestly, there's probably a forecast to be had there, whichever way you prefer the two. But
we're doing Skelton a disservice because All Mankind it's a good horse and he can get one ready for a festival. But I just can't see the front 2 not pulling away, especially when you consider that they're rated way above anything else in the race. The official ratings are there for a reason. And
All Mankind for me leads in, turns the final bend, folds, and the other 2 just take over. I think that's what All Mankind will do. I think you're right that Skelton can ready one, but it's one thing readying one in a handicap. It's another thing in a grade 1.
Ash, you've stayed on the line. I've got no doubt that you've got an opinion on the Arkle.
Yeah, I can't be backing any of these English horses this week. 28-0 Ireland incoming. Shishkin. I mean, I took it on last year in the Supreme, and what did it drift out to? I think it went off 9-1 something on the machine. I think it was fortunate to win the Arkle. Yeah, it's looked good this year, and as has already been mentioned, the times have looked good. But I just can't be backing any of these English horses. I look at all the racing over in Ireland, and I've been watching back that Dublin Racing Festival, which is basically the Cheltenham Festival, before anything's happened. Like, all that's happened this racing season was nothing happened. Dublin Racing Festival, man sits on dead horse, and now we're at the festival. So give me this Energy Mini at 2-1. I reckon they'll go off 6-4 the pair. I don't like backing drifters. So the Willie Mullins horse, it will be smashed in. It will be bang there. And I kind of fully expect it to go on and win. and burst some bubbles and some accumulators from all the English punters within 35 minutes of the week starting. So yeah, there we go.
Especially if Appreciate goes in race 1, you know,
Yeah,
you're going to be getting everyone steaming into the second race.
There's going to be some big roll-ups on day one on the Mullins horses and the Irish horses. So yeah,
That's just you, Chair.
Okay, let's see what happens in the mares if anything falls down at the end.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one, isn't it?
But no, I just don't think you can be backing Shiskin at odds on. I don't. It will drift. Like, I just look at it. It will drift. It's not going to go off odds on. If it goes off odds on, I'll be amazed. I'll be absolutely amazed if it goes off odds on.
Well, you gents mentioned the mares, and obviously that's, I think, race 5 that day at 3:40. The Close Brothers Mares Hurdle. Again, if you're trained by Willie Mullins, you're looking good. And winners normally have run well the year before. Chip, who's your money on?
I can't see past the favourite. I really can't. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, to be honest. I'm probably perming the favourite with Appreciate It, with Inogarment, and that way I don't need to worry about backing any of those three, and I'm looking for value elsewhere.
So Concertista for you?
Yeah, absolutely, Concertista.
Mav, I know you love backing a favourite.
No, not here.
What?
Not here. No, I think this is one of those races where you get the last year's, because Concertista won the novice race last year for the mares, and I just think,
Mav, what is the mares for those people listening that are they're into their football and just listening because they've made a bit of money from us in the football? Mares Hurdle. What horses go to that race?
So obviously female horses over 4 years of age. Normally horses that are going to be 5, 6. Quite honestly, last year probably I don't know what Chip thinks, the best hurdle race the year, better than the Champion Hurdle when you looked at who was in it. And it just gives the reason it started was to give bloodstock mares an opportunity for some money at Cheltenham and some black type, as they call it.
So it was Honeysuckle that was first past the post last year at an SP of 9-4.
Yeah.
Who is it you're going for this year, Mav?
For me, it's a case of Young Pretender versus the horse that's been there and done it. So I'll go for Roxana, who is second favourite. Stays 3 miles, although this race is over 2 mile 4. But has run pretty well this year. Won the race 2 years ago, although in quite fortunate circumstances. A Willie Mullins faller at the last. But for me, came third earlier in the year at Ascot, behind the two, probably the two that will be 1 and 2 in the Stayers Hurdle, depending what your opinion is. But I think the drop down in trips, no problem. Probably go from the front, and I think the Skeletons will get their winner on day 1.
Okay, so it's another example of Chip and Mav disagreeing.
Standard stuff, eh?
I'm just looking at these prices. English, I honestly do. Like normally, I'm like, okay, yeah, English horses are good. And they're normally under bet. I'm looking at the prices now and thinking, why are these Irish horses not massively odds on? Like Roxana 3-1. I backed Roxana a couple of years ago when she won this. Fortunately, she was 10-1 that day. I can't be backing her at 3-1 here. This Concertita, she went off 9-1 in the was it the Mares and Officers? Well, she was 9-1 in the Mares and Officers Hurdle last year. Went off about 5s or 6s, if I can remember correctly. She was underrated that day. I think she's still underrated here. I think honestly, we all getting on the Mullins Ackers, aren't we? This is like 2015 again. Oh, I can't wait.
Well, speaking of hackers and winners, should we talk about the champion hurdle? Because we tipped the winner of that race last year, didn't we? And was it Chip? Was it you that?
Chip, yeah.
Yeah. Just
Do
another
you
winner.
want to give us an opinion on the race, or do you just want to nod?
Well, again, for me, you either go Irish or you follow JP. And I'm not saying you don't do the form, because you do. But once you get down to the final 2-3, you always apply is it JP or the Irish? And I can't, again, I'm an Epatante fan. Again, I can't, they've pulled Bouvardere out of the race. What does that tell you? I don't know, but I fancied it for a place. That's why I put it out at 25-1, because I'm taking Bouvardere every single year at 5-1 on place, early doors. Doesn't mean I might not have a different bet in the race when the day comes, but 2 weeks before I'm having it. Yeah, fair enough. We've got non-runner, no bet. And it's been pulled out, but we've got his money back. So it's back in the bank. And I'm probably just going to invest it back onto Epatante, to be honest. I'm more than happy to forgive the last race, when Silver Streak won. There's no way that JP's told Nicky to get him ready for that race. It's a prep race for Cheltenham. We all know that JP is only interested really in winning at Cheltenham. That's his main aim. And if you go back and just look at through the years how many winners he actually has, it's ridiculous. And I'm all over Epatante in that race. I'm all over it.
Okay. So just for the benefit of listeners, obviously for those that are in our Telegram group, we will, on the morning of each day, very clearly send selections. Here's who we're going for. Here's the best price. Here's the bookmakers that do the best price. And here's how many points we're recommending you put on them. But as Chip and Mav alluded to at the start, with a lot of the races, maybe not on day one, but some of the later days, declarations haven't finished. We don't know for certain who's running. We don't know what the weather's going to be. So at the moment, we're just speculating. Probably the lads have put a small amount of money on a few doubles and trebles here and there, just to give us an interest in case we've got any of the early value. But selections will be going out of the morning of each day. And speaking of days, maybe we should talk about day 2, because we want to try and cover some other races before our time runs out. The Ballymore Novices Hurdle. There's actually 4 Grade 1s on day 2 of the festival, which is normally Ladies' Day, if I remember rightly. But yeah, the Ballymore Novices Hurdle starts the day off, 2 miles, 4 furlongs. Mav, do you have your eye on a particular horse?
I think there's 2 horses that it's between. I was talking to someone at work about it today, and that they are all over Brave Man's Game, who at the moment is 3rd favourite. It's between Brave Man's Game and Bob Ollinger. Bob Ollinger's last run, he won the race that Envoy Allen won last year before winning this. Which obviously, trainers are creatures of habit, or not necessarily trainers, but there's certain routes that people go through. And if you look at trends, they'll go from one race to another. And that is one race that they naturally go to. Mm-hmm. Brave Man's Game, though, absolutely annihilated the Challow Hurdle at Newbury just after Christmas. So it's between those 2, and it's one that I'm, to be completely honest, haven't quite made an opinion completely, and I hate kind of sitting there and going, well, which one is it? But it's between those 2. I just haven't had enough time to think. No one's given me enough of a reason to pick one over the other.
I'll give you one. It's actually a negative for the Challow Novices Hurdle winner. They normally don't go on to win this race.
There we go.
There you go.
The Bob Ollinger. We'll stick with some favourites. Do something I don't normally do.
Grant me.
Well, I've already made a selection in this race, and I've put it out on the group. But I've since found out that the trainer is maybe looking at putting the horse in a different race, and that'd scupper our plans. But I've gone for Adrimel in this race, and the reason that I've gone for Adrimel is that it looks a dour stayer, and I think you need to be able to stay It's unbeaten apart from its one win. Its one loss in the champion bumper last season at Cheltenham, where it finished midway down the field, 16th out of 23. But in every single race since then, it's improved. And it went and won a Grade 2 at Warwick last time. And it went from the front, and I couldn't have been more impressed with the way that it went through the race. Richard Johnson had obviously decided he wanted to know about its stamina. So he sent it, and it got, I mean, it must have been 7 horses come and tackle it all the way through, and he just stayed on. And he stayed on. I mean, there's nothing in that performance that made me think it wanted 3 mile. But for some reason, they've decided to enter it in the Albert Bartlett's as well. And when I was doing the form, I just thought, there's no way it's running the Albert Bartlett's. But I read an article only yesterday on the Racing Post that said that they're thinking about going for it, and the price has been backed in. But I'm not backing a horse that's never even run at a distance at Cheltenham, never mind won at it. So we've gone for Adrimel in this race. I'm still happy with it, to be honest with you, because I still think it's got a good chance of running in it. But I agree with everything that Tom's just said. You know, it's more than likely that the form will come to the front. But I'm happy to be sat on Adrimel at 25-1 when I think it probably goes off about 12-1 on the day, and we've taken it each way. So right now, Adrimel for me, but that could all change.
Non-runner, no bet. We get our money back if the horse doesn't run.
What price does this Mullins thing he's got in from France, Galliard de Mesnil, go off?
It's 11-4 at the minute. But what's going to go off that? Probably favourite, mate.
Yeah, I reckon, looking at this market, Bob Ollinger's 2-1 now. That will go off 5-2. And this Galliard de Mesnil will probably go off about 7-4. It's not a race I particularly looked at, but if we're right on the Monday on the Tuesday with the Mullins horses, I think we know where a lot of that money is going to be going.
Yeah, we know where the market's going.
Yeah.
So I love the way you've just, very nonchalantly predicted which horses are going to drift, which horses are going to contract, with no real massive evidence.
I reckon we know this Bob Ollinger will drift.
But why?
Because it's the favourite for the opening race on the second day of the festival, and it will drift. They'll take it on. Into it. It's got a female jockey on it. I know we're in the big we're in the big days of women's rights and all of that, but this is the Cheltenham Festival, and people still won't back women jockeys. It's a simple thing.
You're being serious. It's just let's take humour out of it for a second, right? Because I don't mix in horse racing circles. You three bet on horse racing much more than me, and you know more than me. I look to you three for advice. Are people that bigoted and stupid that they would not back a horse because a jockey's female?
I think that English punters are less likely to back Rachel Blackmore to win this race than they would back Paul Townsend to win the race.
And that's insane. My comment on it is, Paz, you're looking at it through sensible eyes. This is the same environment that 2 weeks ago thought it was good to sit on a dead horse and take photos. So if you put it, we're trying to look at it through a sensible viewpoint, but unfortunately there is probably an argument that yes, and I would argue again that horses with female jockeys on probably go off at bigger prices than they should. Not necessarily that people don't back them, but I think that there's a tendency that they are overpriced. I look at Bryony Frost and the horses she's won on, and I look at Rachel Blackmore and the horses she's won on recently. You take Frode on a couple of years ago, probably would have gone off shorter if you got Ruby Walsh on it. Now, maybe that's because it's Ruby Walsh and he's had 20 years in the saddle. But these jockeys, there's not the huge difference between the top and bottom that people think. It's all about what they sit on at the end of the day. Yes, over the final couple of furlongs, you might be able to get a bit more, but I do honestly think that Ash is right there. I
don't have a problem with it at all. I'll back a female jockey all day long. No problem.
Agree. But I do think they go off overpriced. And
yeah. Well, look at Minella Indoor.
Yeah.
She went up, she finished second to Alamo and went off at 50-1. Just you could argue that she may, if they'd have put a decent jock on her, well, say decent blow, a Barry Cooper on or whoever, then you might be looking at 25s. But yeah, there's an argument there, but I don't have a problem at all. I'll back female jockeys all day long.
Well, I think Rachel Blackmore's one of the best in the business, same as Nina Carberry was back in the day, or
completely.
the one who won the 4 mile.
Well, that's it, exactly. I've been to Fairy House, I've been to Leopardstown, and the things that I always remember is she dominates the race every single time. Yeah. She really is a great jockey, and I have no problems backing her at all.
So we've got a lot of questions from Twitter at Save the Punter. If you're listening for the first time, you'll find us on Twitter at Save the Punter. We're running out of time. Is there maybe just one more race anyone's got a really strong opinion on that they'd like to cover? Don't get shy on me, lads, because you were.
I've got one. I've been backing for Kay Dowdare in the Ryanair for quite a while now on the anti-post, on the non-running no bets. Cheltenham placed last season. Joseph O'Brien. The thing with all Joseph O'Brien horses is he's already taken a leaf out of his father's book, and you just have no idea what he's doing with him. He fiddles about. He doesn't get them ready. I don't think, this is all assumption, but every time I look at one of his horses, and I'm the same with Tony Bloom, to be honest with you, whenever I look at one of his horses in training, and I always just think to myself, what are you doing with this horse? And it's now 8-1 for the Ryanair, which is quite short. But as long as it goes to the Ryanair, I can't see it getting beat. I really can't. And that is on day 3 of the festival, so that will be Thursday.
And also that race, I'm looking at the Ryanair now. There's 11 horses in that race, 10-1 and under, and of those, probably in there. You got Chacun Pour Soi won't run, Altior won't run, Mellon will probably go elsewhere, Ken Boy will go. So there's at least 5 of those that will come out. Now, there's an argument, obviously, if they're all under 10-1, there's a huge overround on it. But that's a race that will cut up quite badly if you can find the likes of Fakir, because Fakir Doudourie will not. If you took out, Altior, Chacun Pour Soi, and Ken Boy are all shorter, so he's not going to stay 8-1. So if you want to back something now that's no bet, will probably run in the race, and come the day you've probably got a horse that's 5-1. It's a good bet.
Mav, let's finish with your last word. Any horse that you or race you want to talk about before we go to questions?
See, in that race that Chip was just saying about the Ryanair, I quite like Min. For a reason that 6 out of 7 over the same distance. Last year's winner, 6-1, too big for me. But I think the nap of the week for me is in the second last race of the week, the new Mare's Chase over 2 mile 4. There's a horse of Mullins's, there's a familiar name, called Ellie May, and I think will, unless she doesn't make it round, I think is an absolute certainty.
Another JP horse.
Yeah, 13-8 at the moment, and I think there are going to be far shorter horses this week that get beaten. I look at the form. I've got it in front of me. Won the last race. The race before that was beaten by Alaho, who last year came second in the RSA. And is the kind of gold cut Ryanair horse. I mean, this is a horse that, quite frankly, could be running in the Ryanair, and this race has popped up this year, and Willie Mullins must be rubbing his hands together because I'm just trying to see what the prize money is. I bet it's probably about 70 grand.
Who are you talking about now? Min?
No, Ellie May.
Ellie May. At what price?
May. At the moment, 11-8.
That's your nap of the festival.
That's nap of the festival.
Okay, Chip, in one sentence, your nap of the festival.
Champ, Gold Cup.
Ash, nap of the festival.
Album photo in the Gold Cup.
Okay.
That's coming
Right.
up, Ash.
Questions from the listeners. Chip, from Michael McNally, what weighting do you place on previous course and distance and festival form? And does it have greater significance in specific races?
Well, it absolutely has greater significance. If you've previously placed one at Cheltenham, never mind the festival, then it gives you a huge advantage. Absolutely. Now, the first thing I'm looking for is festival form. You can rule a horse out that's never won at Cheltenham. So, yeah, for me, you've got to remember that a lot of these races were running off level weights. So you've got to take that into consideration. It has to be a factor. It has to be.
Speaking of weights, Toby Palmer said, what's better, lead weight or jockey weight?
It's all weight, is it not?
Jockey weight.
Why jockey
Well,
weight?
a jockey moves, whereas lead weight's pretty.
If you've got a jockey that's, I don't know, 3 or 4 pounds heavier, but it's due to mass, and normally when you think they're not very big people anyway, it's going to be usable mass. I always think otherwise you just got dead weight in the saddle.
I'm not sure I understand and agree with that, but
that's my thing.
So, Ash, I've got one for you. This has come from Bowers Co. Great lad on Twitter. He's put, you flick through Twitter after day 2 and there'll be a plethora of people calling racists and jockeys bent, especially if I don't know what this means, but something about a gamble going in.
JP McManus colours.
Yeah, okay, it's the McManus colours, is it? Okay, got it. Or perceive as a gamble gone wrong. Ash, would you take any notice of market moves in the morning or ones close to post?
When it comes to the festival, I'll take notice of market moves throughout the day. I think they're quite important. Obviously, markets nearer to race time are better to take notice of. People who are complaining about the game being fixed, yeah, maybe from October to February it is. By fixed, things don't want to win. But then when it comes to March, it's all there in black and white for us to see what JP wants to win. And we all copped it off last year, I hope, when he was smashing in handicap hurdles left, right and centre. Because it was so obvious what the plan was. And yet people were trying to second guess it as if it was some kind of novel game. Just if there is a gamble with JP and it's going to be a gamble, just fucking back it. Don't try and be clever. Right.
No, I agree completely.
Would any market moves make you change your bet or remove your stake in a race?
No, absolutely not. I mean, we backed Midnight Tour in the mares at 66 to 1.
Oh, it comes second.
She
That
drifted
last
to 80.
fence.
I just went in again. If you're confident on your selection, if you've done the form and if you're confident on your selection, get on it. Because I tell you what, if it wins and you haven't backed it like a winner, you're going to regret it.
Yeah, I second that.
There's a reason you pick it in the first place.
If you're guessing, forget about it.
Yeah,
just have a bit on. But if you've done the form,
speaking to traders in the past, for me, my point of view is they've said that they're in the red early morning. So if there are any moves, they do happen quite early on because they're wanting to take the big bets early so that then they can fill the book later on. I mean, I don't know whether it really helps because I think if all of a sudden you shorten up, people do twig and follow it as well. But I can understand their thoughts. Nearer to post, I think this year will be different to a lot because there's not going to be much going on course. But then again, how much goes on course anyway?
That's the one factor we've not even thought about. There's no on-course bookies, is there? So, but I think that benefits the online punter because you've seen horses going off at prices that you'd never see them go off at. In a normal day's racing, you would never see horses going off, 3 of them at 3-figure odds. And every day. It's every day.
I'd argue as well that you've now got the best part of 200,000 people not on course across the week. That's 200,000.
The Irish cash, you mean?
Yeah, that's 200,000
money for the town.
Betting online. So the thing is, the bookies are going to want your money online. So that's how this year, to be honest, is going to be the most competitive online. And I would say the over-rounds will be as small as possible this year to try and get you money.
Speaking of Irish money, Nailbird Crickets asked, do you think the issues around Gordon Elliott will affect the horse's performance at the festival for A, the ones still there, and B, the horses that have moved on to another stable? Mav, I'll go to you first.
Tough. It's a tough one to say. There's a lot that's probably gone on behind the scenes, and what part is he still playing? I mean, we all know that he's very much active in the yard, although he's not the name on the yard. So for the ones still there, I think it will make no difference at all. But then I also look at the ones there, and quite frankly, the ones that actually have a chance this festival have left. He's probably got one or two. For the ones that have moved on, $1 million question, isn't it? Does something settle in within 2 weeks' notice? You see horses that come across from France and take a while to settle in at places. But then I look at it and I think, well, these horses are used to travelling. I mean, you take Envoy Allen, for example, travels over as if he's just gone down the road. Like, there's no problem at all. So does settling into a new box makes it a difference? It must. It would unsettle a human, I think. If your routine was changed all of a sudden, but you'd think Gordon Elliott's been in touch with most of these people, because if you're Henry de Bromhead taking in his horses, you want all his know-how on how to settle the horse.
Okay.
Time will tell.
So another question, we had a similar question from Atlas Tips, who basically asked the same question. Benjamin, ABVEFNC on Twitter, asked about trends. We've kind of answered that one, and we've got one from Ill Advised, which is how many lengths does, and I'll probably pronounce this wrong, Zanahiyr win by?
Yeah, in the Triumph.
You tell us, mate.
I mean, if he goes to the Triumph, I think it's one of the most competitive Triumph hurdles we've had for a few years.
I actually agree with you on that front.
Mine came up a couple of years ago and won at 25-1, but that was only because the favourite unfortunately passed away. And last year, the favourite was absolutely romping it until he tipped up. There's no horse this year that I would say wins by length and length.
I'm looking down the field in that one. I'm looking at Tax for Max, maybe. There's no way I'm backing Zanahiyr or Tritonic at the prices that are currently available.
I think they're good horses, and I don't think they're necessarily the deepest of races. But to say, I mean, you've got horses like Dufflecoat in that race that's with Gordon Elliott, and he's 14-1.
I think he's going to go for the Albert Bartlett, but yeah, I know what you mean. That's why he's 42 now. He's on the exchange, but I've got Dufflecoat down as a possible in the Bartlett, to be honest.
Right, we are very much out of time, folks. This has gone on for a little longer than we thought it would. Gonna have some serious editing on my hands tonight to pack this into an hour. Gents, thank you so much for joining. Chip, Mav, Ash, Pete. It's been a pleasure to chat Premier League and Cheltenham with you. And I will just plug one more time. Look, if you want to get involved with us and celebrate our wins and commiserate with us on our losses at this festival, and we've done really well for punters before, just drop us a DM on Twitter at Save the Punter. So drop us a DM on Twitter at Save the Punter. And yeah, hopefully we'll have a record festival performance. Enjoy your evening, fellas.
Enjoy, boys.
Cheers, fellas. Thanks a lot.
Boys.